4 minutes from now, you'll know exactly what red blood cells are, what they do, and the 7 ways they're measured on the complete blood count. Once you know that, you'll know for sure if you should be concerned about that red number on your CBC or not. And as a bonus, I'm gonna link 3 resources for you to understand and fix the most common red blood cell abnormalities. Hey, I'm Dr. Tom Scheck-Snyder, and I wanna help you understand your labs and optimize your health. I do that through the Labstories podcast and these short topical videos that seek to deliver the highest amount of educational value to you in the shortest time possible so you can understand your labs and optimize your health. Because when your health is optimized, you can do anything. Let's go. Red blood cells are the oxygen-carrying cells that float around in your blood. They're the most numerous cells in your body, with about 25 trillion of them floating around at any given time. They carry oxygen from the lungs to the tissues using the protein hemoglobin. They're made by the bone marrow and live about 120 days. Once they die, their iron is recycled and put into new red blood cells, and the red heme pigment changes colors to yellow and brown. The most common red blood cell disease is low red blood cells, or anemia, which literally means low blood. Red blood cells are measured on the complete blood count, or CBC, in 7 different ways, and those can be lumped into 3 big categories. Number 1 is characteristics of the group as a whole, which is red blood cell count, hemoglobin, and hematocrit. Number 2 is characteristics of the average red blood cell, which are the mean corpuscular measures MCV, MCH, and MCHC. Number 3 is how the red blood cells compare to one another, which is red cell distribution width, or RDW. Now, where should you start in assessing red blood cells on the CBC? Hemoglobin. The reason why is that many of the other measures rest on hemoglobin. If hemoglobin is normal, the others will be normal. And if hemoglobin is abnormal, the others will be abnormal. Before we get to the good part though, I want you to pretend that the red subscribe button will infuse your body with hemoglobin, and by clicking it, you'll run the fastest mile and lift the most weight you ever have in your life. Go ahead and hit it now. Let's look at the most common low hemoglobin example, iron deficiency anemia, which accounts for 50% of anemias worldwide. When your body doesn't have enough iron, your bone marrow can't make enough hemoglobin, so the hemoglobin on the CBC is low. When hemoglobin is low, you'll notice several other abnormal things. The red blood cell count drops because low hemoglobin means not enough red blood cells can be made. The hematocrit drops because hematocrit is the percent volume that red blood cells occupy in blood and is a direct result of how much hemoglobin those red blood cells have. On the individual cell level, all the mean cell measures will decrease, but I want you to disregard MCH and MCHC and only focus on MCV, because MCH and MCHC don't add any additional meaningful information to what we already know from hemoglobin and MCV. Finally, the red cell distribution width increases because the bone marrow, in its panic, pumps out whatever red blood cells it can. There are big ones, small ones, thin ones, misshaped ones. They're ugly. RDW will be over the 15% limit. Let's hone in on MCV real quick and talk about what your next steps should be. Low hemoglobin and low MCV usually mean iron deficiency anemia. If that's you, you should download my free iron deficiency guide and watch episode 2 of Labstories for more info on iron studies. If you have normal MCV in a chronic disease like diabetes, obesity, chronic kidney disease, or heart failure, then you may have anemia of chronic disease, and you should download my free weight loss checklist, which will help you pay off the chronic disease mafia and get rid of that type of anemia. If you have a high MCV, your B12 and folate levels should be checked, and listen to episode 3 of Labstories where I walk you through that detailed diagnostic pathway. Also consider if your alcohol intake is too high, because that's another important cause of high MCV. In summary, red blood cell health rests on hemoglobin. Hemoglobin good, you're good. Hemoglobin bad, then you're bad. Here's to understanding your labs and optimizing your health.